Now it is okay, sir. Sir, 1 minute, I will introduce you, sir.
Okay,
Uh,
sir. Yeah.
uh, Good morning to everybody. Now, today we have the fourth day of this program. Uh, Today's guest speaker is Dr. M. Yuvaraja. He is from PSG College of Technology, Coimbatore. He has a 15 years of teaching experience at PSG College of Technology. Presently, he is the program coordinator for PG program Engineering Design and QMS coordinator. He has published nearly 30 papers in various international and national journals. He completed 3 funded projects to the tune of 40 lakhs funded by MNRE and AICTE. He is the recipient of IEI Young Engineer Award by IEI Kolkata in the year 2015 and PK Das Memorial Award by Nehru Group of Institution in the year 2016, and he won a PhD Teacher of the Year award by PhD Group of Institution during the year 2017. He has also published more than 50 papers in various international conferences and national conferences. He has organized more than 10 events such as AICT sponsored international conference, faculty development programs, and national conference, workshops, etc. Now I invite you, sir, for this program. And today he is given a lecture on vibration analysis of rotating machinery. Now I will hand over the session to Dr. M. Yuvaraja. Over to Yuvaraja, sir.
Hello,
Sir.
sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I am hearing, sir. Very clear, sir. Your voice is clear, sir.
My presentation slide, sir.
Yes,
Can
sir. It
you
is
see?
visible, sir. It is visible, sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So, good morning to one and all. Good
Good
morning to one
morning.
and all present. Myself, Dr. M. Yuvaraja, belongs to PSG College of Technology. So, I am going to talk about today vibration analysis of rotating machinery, but it is not only restricted to rotating machinery. So, I am going to tell you some basics of vibration and how what kind of parameter we have to consider before we start analyze any system. So before we start analyze any system, what kind of parameter we have to consider and how to proceed with respect to rotating machinery. One or two case study I am going to present at the end. So here we all know the basics of vibration. So mostly any rotating system, you can see the first statement. There are many reasons for vibration, but one major reason, one major cause for vibration is unbalance. So even when we drive our car, so we may notice unbalance. Unbalance means what? It is by means of some effect the vehicle will produce. Say for example, when we run on a straight road, even when you take your hands off from the steering, the vehicle will tends to take a left or right to a left or right. Say for example, it is because of what? It is because of a centrifugal force. The reason is the statement is no rotor will have a zero eccentricity because it is due to manufacturing defect. Even a system will have a continuous system will have a distributed mass. Even a small amount of a mass is not distributed properly. That leads to what? That leads to unbalance because the centrifugal force is m or omega square. So the omega is an RPM, it multiplies. The mass is even small, the magnitude is huge. And for each revolution, it contributes more. So the centrifugal force is acting outward, will try to pull out the vehicle from the axis of rotation. That is the reason the vehicle will take a turn towards the left or right. Similarly, a shaft is rotating and unbalance is present. A fan is rotating and unbalance is present. That will leads to what? Vibration. Even during the resonance, that will give a sudden rise to amplitude of vibration. So unbalance is one main reason for any rotating system. No rotor will have a zero eccentricity. We may not, theoretically we can speak, a system will have a completely perfectly balanced system, but a small manufacturing defect will contribute to unbalance. That again will contribute to vibration. During the resonance, that will give uplift to the amplitude of vibration. That unbalance is one major criteria that we have to consider for any rotating system. If you take any rotating system, first of all, we have to see whether there is an unbalance or not. Definitely there will be an unbalance. Definitely there will be an unbalance, a small unbalance. But how to counteract that unbalance? That we have to see. So before we thought of any analysis, any vibration analysis for any system, is there any unbalance present in the system? So what is the other reason other than unbalance? Maybe any system will have a mass, and any system will have a mass, have a tendency to vibrate on its own. Simply elastic nature of the system will have a tendency to vibrate on its own, and mostly external excitation, because many cases we will try to solve with a free vibration assumption, but most of the practical applications are external forced vibration. So whenever there is an external excitation, then it leads to what? Vibration. Not only vibration in that particular part, and nearby parts or surroundings or structures, many things, the vibration is transferred. So that is the one case here. And the wind, a nature, maybe a wind may cause vibration in tubes and wires and even bridges, etc. Here, a simple example, what we thought of is a simple pendulum. But here, not only simple pendulum, why it is called a simple pendulum? Anyone can answer. What is compound pendulum? Anyone can unmute and answer. What is compound pendulum? Anyone can unmute and try to answer. Here, a simple pendulum is given. So how vibration happens? Vibration happens because of what? Conversion of energy, a kinetic to potential, potential to kinetic, vice versa, will lead to a vibration in a system. A simple pendulum and compound pendulum. Anyone? What is compound pendulum? How do you define a compound pendulum? Okay, let me answer. Here, anyone, please?
When the mass of the string or the extension is considered, that is called a compound pendulum, along with the ball.
Yes, here you are correct. Here the answer is, when the mass is distributed only at the end, it is called a simple pendulum. When the mass is distributed throughout the system, then it is a compound pendulum. Maybe if the ball, a beam is attached, it can be called as a compound pendulum because the mass is distributed. Here, when compared to the ball, the thread mass is neglected. So the mass is concentrated only at the end. It is a simple pendulum and a compound pendulum. Compound pendulum will have, a system will have how many natural frequency? Infinite number of natural frequencies, a continuous system. So any rotating system or any system, before we start off vibration analysis, we have to check the natural frequencies. The natural frequency, in the sense, it is simply a frequency of free vibration, that we have to identify the natural frequencies. And one important thing that we have to consider, how many natural frequencies are we are going to consider for our analysis. Because whether shall we going to consider only one natural frequency, or only two natural, or third or fourth or fifth, or how many natural frequency we are going to take for our analysis purpose. That mainly depends on what criteria. So what is the criteria is going to decide how many natural frequency we are going to take for our analysis? Can anyone say? Based on what we can select the natural frequencies that we have to consider for our analysis? Can anyone say? Can anyone say? Because even when we might have done some experimentation, even dynamics laboratory, and we may teach our students this particular experiment. So it depends on the range of the operating frequency. So how many natural frequency may fall within the range of operating frequency? That natural frequencies we have to consider for our analysis. So any system we take, we have to think what is the parameter that we have to consider, and the number of natural frequencies, and what is the operating range. These are all some basic requisites for vibration analysis. Even the simple pendulum figure is in front of you. Even when we teach this particular simple pendulum experiment to students, if you take this experiment, students may be calculating a time period or natural frequency of the system. So there is a relation, and it can be the relation can be verified with the experimentation. So one student may give a initial disturbance, and the other students may give another initial disturbance. It may be different one to one, but the natural frequency will be the same. So we have to ask how the natural frequency is same, though you are giving a different initial disturbance. One may give very long initial disturbance, one may give very short initial disturbance. So the velocity will compensate. So similarly, for all any cases, we have to analyze. Here, most of the cases, vibration it produces bad effects. Some cases it produces where it required vibration is required. It is a good effect. So vibration may produce unwanted stress, a rapid wear and tear in bearings and gears. So we are going to talk about today a little bit about a rotating machinery. So bearings and gears and loosening of parts, etc. These are all some bad effects produced by vibration. So as we all know that some good effects is testing equipments where we are using vibration. Testing equipments we are using vibration. Vibration as it produces some good effect, and conveyors, feeders, hoppers, sievers, etc. Musical instruments. So here not only a rotating device. First of all, we are experiencing vibration in many places. Even when we travel, we are experiencing some unwanted vibration. So that is the unwanted vibrations transferred to the passenger is removed by means of various methods. Even a rotating machinery, any other machinery, vibration it produces some unwanted effect. So as an engineer, as a faculty, as a student, one should know where we have to go for what kind of a controlling mechanism. So simply we may not be able to apply a damper to all cases. Simply we may not be able to apply a vibration absorber to all places. An isolator. Some passive methods, some active methods. Active method means some with respect to changes in your operating frequency, the system has to adapt, the system has to change its character, and it has to adapt, the system has to adapt for the requirements. Similarly, the control methods also, everyone have to clearly state where we have to go for what kind of control mechanism. That is very, very essential. Simply we may not be able to go for an isolator to one place. So where it is required, what is the condition? So we are the first and foremost thing, if you take any system, we are trying to capture its natural frequencies. So how many natural frequencies are really required? It is depends on the operating frequency range. A model analysis will be helpful to find out the natural frequency. And even we may be we can do an operational model analysis while operating. An operational model analysis is bit complicated when the system is running, when the system is operating, and we are trying to find out the mode shapes. An operational model analysis will be able to, we may be able to retract the mode shapes when it is operating. So here a different control method is available. So I'm going to touch upon here. So during the vibration analysis, definitely we should know, once we find out a natural frequency and we know the resonance. The resonance means what is the condition for resonance? We all know the condition for resonance. When a system is experiencing, the operating speed, when it exactly matches with the natural frequency, the condition of resonance occurs. The condition of resonance occur when the operating speed exactly matches with its natural frequency. So that particular condition should be avoided. So as a manufacturer, they should be able to, the manufacturer will tell the customer the natural frequencies may, chances of the natural frequencies may coincide with the operating frequency. So what is the role of customer? Then they should ensure that they are not supposed to operate their system at that particular frequency in order to avoid the unwanted the rise in amplitude of vibration, unwanted rise in amplitude of vibration. So if such case, if it occurs, then what we have to do? The system may vibrate vigorously. Then the system may try to what? The system may fail, may encounter some unwanted stresses, or even may encounter some catastrophic failure. The system may encounter some catastrophic failure. So any system we take, once we find out its natural frequency, immediately we are looking onto the operating frequency range. Then, though the vibration of amplitude is higher in case of resonance, but the regular operating, it is kind of a fatigue load. The vibration is always a fatigue in nature, because it is what continuously a system is operating nearly 1000 rpm or 2000 rpm. For every rpm, for every cycle, there will be a vibration. Even the unbalance is very small, 20,000 revolution per minute. So the magnitude of vibration is, at last, if you look at, it will be the effect, because of that small mass, small unbalance, the vibration is, the effect is very high. So we are trying to reduce and we are trying to minimize the amplitude of vibration as much as minimum, as much as less, as much as minimum. So we are trying to reduce the amplitude of vibration. That will improve definitely the life cycle of the lifespan of the system. So here, though we are finding out some natural frequency and the operating range, we have to see where we have to go for what kind of a control mechanism. Where we have to go for what kind of a control mechanism. Simply, we may not be able to go for any method. We have some passive methods, we have some active methods. Under passive methods, a damper is extensively used as a vibration controlling device. It depends on, again, the parameter, the natural frequency and the operating range. Again, dynamic vibration observer, that again depends on the natural frequency and operating range. Again, isolator, again it depends on the same parameters. So an engineer, he has to immediately think upon some problem. It comes to for you, for consultancy or some other purpose, immediately that we have to think upon. So what is the model analysis, what kind of the frequencies, how many frequencies, and how many frequencies are again falling into the natural operating range. Then we have to see what kind of method we can deploy in order to counteract the amplitude of vibration in that particular application, whether it is a machine tool, whether it is a bridge, or whether it is any application. Here we'll just, I am going to touch upon the one. We have a damper. A damper is one extensively used vibration method to control the vibration in any system, whether it is a rotating or reciprocating any system. A vibration should be counteracted by a damper, because damper is a device which we are going to dissipate the energy by means of a friction or by means of some other mode to reduce the energy. Because suppose you want to bring down the vibration, means what? You have to drain the energy from the system. The energy from the system should be drained. Then only what? So say for example, when we are going to office morning, we are brisk. So in the evening the same, we are what? We are not that much brisk, because the energy is drained. So our energy is drained. Because of that, we are not that much brisk. Similarly, the system energy should be drained, should be dissipated to bring down your system to rest or equilibrium or calm. Here there are different damping, you all know, a critical, over damp and under damp. Here I am raising one question. So most of the system will most of the mechanical system, we are employing an under damping. Under damping is actually used in many, not many, almost 100% of the system, except many one or two places where it is really required, a critical damper system may be used in practical application. Unless otherwise, the most used damping method for your case is under damping. Why? Anyone can unmute and answer why under damping is mostly used. Critical damping. Now, before that, you know the difference by looking at the graph and by looking at one simulation is one animation is going in front of you. A graph is showing critical damping is what? Time graph It is simply time response is given, a time versus amplitude ratio is given in front of you. So an under damping system is what? One, the vibration, the time taken, the settling time is taken is more, whereas in case of under damping, whereas in case of a critical damping, it settles earlier, whereas in case of a over damping also, it settles earlier than under damping. The overshooting is not there, whereas in case of a critical damping and over damping system, the overshooting is not there. The system will come to rest. It is not crossing the mean position. The response of the system is not crossing the mean position. Can anyone answer, though the critical damping and over damping, it settles earlier than under damping, why all system we are preferred to have an under damping? Can anyone unmute and answer? Why under damping is preferred? The damping ratio value is 1, whereas in case of under not critical damping, under damping is less than 1 and critical damping is more than 1. Even you can see the spring is oscillating, the blue color spring is oscillating, what it crosses the mean position, it crosses the mean position and it get backs, it crosses the mean position and get backs. The other two is within the mean position, it stops within the mean position. The time wave graph also, it shows the time response is also, it shows the same. My simple question is, why critical damping is preferred only in some specific application? Why under damping is preferred in most of the mechanical system? Though it takes more time to settle down, the under damping. Can anyone unmute and answer? Can anyone unmute and answer for this? Why? Because it is very much important. We are talking about please.
Maybe the stability of the system. That means if the system is comes to stability suddenly, then some of the the working may be detrimental at that point. So only under damped is preferred for most of the cases.
Okay, very good. Here, even you take example of our system. Our heart is pumping blood. So the performance of the heart is measured with respect to ejection fraction, EF. If you take echocardiogram, you'll be able to see the EF. It is what? Some number will be, the doctor will tell you some number, some 45 or 50. That means the volume of blood is pumped per stroke is, per pump is some amount. So that is some measurement, the performance. So if you are trying to bring down suddenly to rest your system, then what happens? What happens to the heart? Suddenly you are trying to bring to rest to any system. So even if it is a mechanical system, if you are trying to bring the system suddenly to rest, there will be more inertia. In the system. The system will experience more inertia. So that we have to avoid. So any system you are trying to bring down the system gradually to rest. Gradually, that is very much important. Suddenly I am putting down you, then that will lead to some other unwanted problems. The system may encounter some other unwanted, some huge inertia will set up inside the system if you are trying to bring down the system suddenly to rest with no time. That is not required. Even what? Gradually a system should be bring down to the rest gradually, rather than what? Trying to bring down the system suddenly. Even here the beauty is, the over damping, it settles little, it takes more time when compared to critically damped system, because the damping factor is 1 when it is in the case of a critically damped system. The damping factor is less than 1 in case of an under damped system. The damping factor is more than 1 in case of a over damped system. Though we are giving more damping in the system, the system will have different forces. Even a free vibration with the damped system, we have inertia. We have an inertia. We have an inertia, and we have a damping force, and we have a stiffness, a spring force. These three forces will contribute a system to vibrate on its own. Here we are giving a more damping value. Because of that excessive damping force, the system will take more time to settle down when compared to critically damped system. Though it is given more, the excessive damping force is present. So anyway, the system has to dissipate that also. So it takes more time. So whether you decide to go for a damper to control a vibration after analyzing its natural frequency, or after analyzing its response of a system, you are trying to bring down, or you are trying to minimize the response of the system to the minimum level or to the maximum extent level possible. Then the moment you decide a damper is a suitable mechanism, and out of damper that you decide which damping method. So mostly it is under damping. Some cases where it is purposefully required is critically damped system. Very minimum cases that we have to justify why we are going for such type of a damping. That we have to clearly justify the response. Here the condition is mostly the analysis is a forced vibration, because we are driving a car, so many rotating parts inside the vehicle. A gearbox is there, engine is there, and many rotating parts is there. The system will experience vibration because of its rotating parts, and the neighboring system also, the neighboring components also will experience vibration because of its rotating parts. So the forced vibration is mostly a machine tool. A spindle is operating at high speed machine tool. It is operating at the RPM of up to 25,000 or 30,000 RPM. So that leads to what? Vibration in nearby the components, a machine bed or nearby the components may experience vibration. Even an operator may experience vibration, or even a nearby machine will experience vibration. It is forced in nature. When you are standing on the bridge, or a vehicle is going on the bridge, or vehicle is going under the bridge, you can experience vibration. When you standing nearby the bridge, nearby the building is nearby the bridge, a train is passed over by nearby the building, then you can experience vibration. It is all mostly a forced vibration. There is a two component in case of a forced vibration when you analyze. One is a transient, and another one is what? There are two parts. One is a real and imaginary. So the transient is what will vanish with respect to time. The other part will be existing as long as there is what? As long as the continuous excitation is present in the system. So forced vibration is what? Simply a vibration with application of a continuous excitation, the system will undergo a vibration. Here there is a graph in front of you. In a forced vibration, whereas in a free damped vibration we have only three force: the inertia, and the damping force, and the stiffness spring force. And here the external force is also the other one. So the magnitude of the applied force is very much essential in analyzing any system, whether it is a rotating system or reciprocating system. The application of the applied force, the RPM of the applied frequency force is very much essential. There is a graph in front of you. It is a magnification factor. You might have seen this graph, so many might have handling the subject vibration. But the significance of the graph is very much important in handling, in analyzing a system, and going for what kind of mechanism that we have to deploy or we have to use for the vibration analysis or control. Here, if you look at the graph, it is a magnification factor. What do you call magnification factor? What do you call magnification factor? Can anyone answer? What do you call magnification factor? What is amplitude ratio? Here, the graph is with respect to frequency ratio and the amplitude ratio. Amplitude ratio. Why it is called magnification factor? Why it is called magnification factor? Can anyone answer? Can anyone unmute and answer why it is called magnification factor? If you look at the graph, the frequency response curve, if you look at the graph, there are two graphs. One is vector representation of the forces. I am not talking about that now. I am talking about the frequency response. The response between the frequency ratio versus amplitude ratio. It is called the magnification factor. Why it is called a magnification factor? Why? What do you mean by what is your understanding about magnification factor? Because of forced vibration, this graph is very much essential. When we are talking about a vibration, please, anyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
See, magnification factor, as you can see, it is x by f naught by k, or xst, that is the amplitude of a forced vibration to that of a static deflection.
Yes. Very good.
So
Then,
so when we consider the amplitude of a forced vibration, when compared to that of static deflection, then we can compare those two, where while the forced vibration amplitude will be more than that of static deflection there.
yes, because very good. Because here the answer is it is magnified. Suppose if you look at for all the values of damping, it starts at 1. When the omega by omega n is 0, it starts at 1, because the ratio of the static deflection and the amplitude is the same. But when the moment you start applying, giving force, that means RPM, when you start rotating the system, when you start operating at a frequency, then it will magnify. That's why the graph goes what? It attains some peak, some higher values. So the moment it starts, it magnified. So that's why it is called a magnification factor. The amplitude ratio will be higher when you keep on applying force. That's why it is called a magnification ratio. It will be magnified for when you keep on applying the force, or the RPM is increasing. That is also, it will be magnifying. When there is an unbalance or bend, it depends on a system. A rotating system will have a different kind of a system will experience a different kind of a defect. Each one will contribute. So here, if you look at, now you come to that this vector graph. I'll just tell you, I'll take 1 or 2 minutes time in this. Here in forced vibration, we have a 4 forces. When if you look at the first graph, the Ka, it is the amplitude, it is the spring force. For the maximum value, it is x is equal to x sin omega t. We are assuming a harmonic force, and we are differentiating with respect to time, and we are getting velocity and acceleration. Here the Ka, for the maximum value, it is given as a Ka. It is a spring force. The other one is damping forces, C omega a damping constant, and the damping constant C omega a damping force, and m omega square is an inertia, and again the F is an applied force, or the force applied or excitation. There are 4 force components in the system. In the graph, we have a 3 graph. The 3 graph will tell you here the significance of the frequency response curve. If you look at the first one, when the operating frequency, that is going to decide, that is going to play a vital role in case of any vibration analysis. When the operating frequency omega to the ratio of natural frequency omega n we are talking about, when omega by omega n is equal to 1, then that will give what? The resonance. During the resonance, for all zeta value, the amplitude of vibration is higher when compared to the other places. Clear? Here, when the omega value is low, in the 4 components, we have omega square in inertia force, we have omega in damping force. Because of the lower operating speed, that 2 component, the force, the magnitude of the 2 component will be lesser. That's why what happens here in the first one, the spring force is completely or mostly counteracted by the applied force, or the applied force is counteracted by spring force. The omega by omega n is lesser than 1 operating region. The omega by omega n is lesser than 1 operating region. What happens is normally, if you are trying to bring down the amplitude of vibration, once you know the natural frequency, once you know the operating speed, you try to operate the system away from the natural frequencies. But still you want to control, you want to reduce In that particular region, you want to reduce, then you go for any mechanism to control. So when the omega is lesser, the omega by omega n is lesser than 1 in that particular region, your applied force is mostly counteracted by spring force. Whereas if you take the second one, when the omega is equal to omega n, then what happens? The phase angle will become 90 degree. Now your damping force is your applied force is counteracted by the damping force. That's why the damping is more predominant or more success or more effective, whereas your operating speed is nearly 0.8 to 1.2 of omega by omega n area. If your operating speed itself it is lesser than your natural frequency, then you don't want to go for what? You don't want to go for the damper is not that much effective. The damper is effective, but the percentage of reduction in case of amplitude, because the amplitude itself is small, the percentage reduction is small. Here the amplitude is higher, the reduction in percentage is higher. So the damping, the critically damped system, when the phase angle becomes 90 degree, your applied force is completely compensated or counteracted by your damping force. Whereas the third one, when more omega, the inertia m omega square, it is a square 2 times of the force, then m omega square, it will be high. C omega is also high. That means what? It is C m omega square A. Phase angle becomes more than 180. It is nearly 180. It is nearing 180 degree. The pi value becomes nearing 180 degree. So in that occasion, if you look at, the damping will not be significant. The damper will not be significant. So here, if you take the graph, you have to divide the graph into 3 regions. The omega by omega n is lesser than 1. It is a stiffness dominant domain. Normally, people will call it as a stiffness dominant domain. When the omega by omega n is operating nearby the 0.8 to 0.8 of omega by omega n, 0.9 or 1 or 1.1, 1.2, that will be a little bit effective. That is a damper dominant domain. If you go for the other way, it is a mass dominant domain. So this graph should be analyzed with respect to 3 parameters. For any system, when we are talking about vibration, though we are going for a damper, any system will have mass, it will have a stiffness, then it has a tendency to vibrate on its own, and you are trying to reduce it. And it is not necessarily that we have to target only the damper. The damper is significant. The damper is effective only when the operating range is near to that of omega by omega n is 1. When it is not 1, what happens? The lesser the operating speed is, a stiffness dominant domain. If your system, suppose we have the next slides, we have the detail. We might have used the critical speed of shaft in our dynamics laboratory. So we may teach our students the critical speed of shaft. So in that, even if you look at the omega, the operating speed is lesser than omega n, the amplitude of vibration is less, but still you want to reduce, you want to bring down, then you have to alter the spring stiffness. You have to target your spring. You have to alter your stiffness of the spring. You are not supposed to touch the damper, or you are not supposed to touch the mass of the system. When the omega is higher side, then you have to touch upon your mass. You have to alter your mass. You have to alter your mass slightly to bring down the amplitude of vibration, the reduction, whatever the reduction possible, you are attempting the reduction in vibration by means of bringing down the mass, by altering the mass. Whereas the damper is a significantly work, or it is more effective, whereas in the case of a system is operated nearby to that omega by omega n. Though we have a damper, we are trying to go for a damper, we have to decide which type of a damping, and again we are going for what? A damper. Then with respect to operating speed, where the damper is more significant. Here we may not be able to simply go for a dynamic vibration absorber. There is a constraint where we have to go for an absorber, where we have to go for actively tuned mass, where we have to go for an isolator. There is a constraint. We have to operate our system depends on the constraint. We have to choose the mechanism of control also based on some kind of analysis. Like we have to analyze the aspects. We have to analyze the frequency response. With respect to frequency response, we have to analyze whether we are operating our system in a stiffness dominant domain, or we are operating in a mass dominant domain, or really a damper is significant for our application. Then only we have to go for a damper. The forced vibration is we are, whether any kind of a system the system is operating, whether any kind of a system reciprocating or rotating or any kind of a system, because a system is mostly experiencing forced vibration, the analysis, because the forced vibration only, the response is existing. As long as the force is there, the response is there. So we are trying to reduce a free vibration. It is going to diminish. The vibration is going to come down. The vibration is going to settle down. So the settling time may be different. The response is also that much effect. It is not going to affect unless the force is applied, unless the external excitation is applied on the system, unless it experience a resonance or operated near to that system. The system will not undergo any difficulty. So that is where we have to go for. It depends on mainly, it is omega n is equal to root of k by m, whether we are targeting a stiffness or whether we are targeting a mass. Even if it is both are not possible, the system anyway somehow it is experiencing resonance, it is operating at near to that speed, it is unavoidable situation, then go for a damper, then select a suitable damping factor value. It depends on your case, and try to dissipate energy. Then you bring down your system to minimum vibration. So that is one important criteria, one important frequency response graph that we have to understand, whether we have to go for, whether we have to alter, what parameter we have to target, that we have to consider by using this graph. Here one more here, it is the force is applied from outside. The other one is the force is inbuilt in the sense maybe a unbalance is, it is like inbuilt because of the force setup is because of unbalance present in the system. Now I am asking you one difference between the magnification factor, the graph, and the graph frequency ratio with the amplitude ratio because of this unbalance. What is the difference between these two graphs? Here it is because of what? Centrifugal force, because of some mass and eccentricity will contribute what? Will contribute to vibration. So when the system is rotating, when there is an unbalance, that will lead to what? Unnecessary vibration. That will cause an eccentricity in the system. That will lead to unnecessary vibration. That unnecessary vibration will harm to what? A bearing, to the bearing or any other nearby neighboring system. Here the system, the difference you can notice here, as long as there is no force is applied, as long as system is not operating, for all the values here it starts at 0. Because there is no operating speed, when the system is not operating, the unbalance will not harm, is not going to produce any effect. The moment when you start the system, when it start rotating, the unbalance will come into picture. The centrifugal force will set up in the system. For higher rotation, the centrifugal force, the magnitude will be higher. Then what happens? Because it is m omega square, or the mass, the speed, and the radius distance will all these parameters will contribute. So for all the values, as far as the system is off, then there is no problem. When the system starts, then it starts the graph. The response is, you are going to see the response of the system. Then again, when omega by omega n is nearby 1, when there is an unbalance, it improves, it increases the vibration suddenly. It increases the vibration suddenly. That is one important aspect, because the unbalance is what? That leads to what? Unnecessary vibration. Even during what? Resonance, it uplifts, it increases vibration, it increases the risk. That is the important point that we have to consider when there is an unbalance. When there is an unbalance in the same graph, when there is no speed, when there is no operating speed, then it will start at 0 for all the values of zeta. Then it slowly increases when it reaches near to that omega by omega is equal to 1, and slowly what it goes. Then we discussed the critical speed. It is a rotating system here. We are teaching. So we discussed many points related to this experiment in the previous slides. Here, that one point I want to tell you. Any system will have n number of natural frequency, will have n number of critical speed. The critical speed, the speed at which, why it is called critical? Because we are not supposed to operate at that particular speed. Because if you operate at that particular speed, the system will experience a failure. So we can suppose in the experiment the motor RPM is 1440 or something around. Say for example, you can take 3000 RPM. You have a shaft, you can calculate the natural frequency. Here, what criteria that we have to again analyze? If you take a shaft, can anyone answer? You might have taught this critical speed of shaft to students. Can anyone tell you what criteria, what boundary conditions that we have to consider while we are talking about the critical speed of shaft? Can anyone unmute and tell? Can anyone? Because a system will have a number of please.
We have to consider the shaft as the bearings as a rigid support and shaft as a soft material. So then we can apply the boundary conditions there.
Okay, fine. Okay. Okay. Here, the point is what we have to consider. Anyway, the shaft is supported by bearings. Here, the condition we have to assume whether we are going to take it as a fixed or rigid fixed condition or supported condition, maybe depends on case to case. Because what kind of a bearing we are going to use? Suppose normally people will take this analysis as when you are going for a long bearing. When you are going for a long bearing, they will consider as a fixed support. When you're going for a short bearing, maybe you can consider as a supported condition. Here, in a strength of materials, we might have studied for different end conditions, for a different configuration, whether it is a cantilever or fixed or supported or overhanging, for any type of structure, because that is your system maybe you are going to represent your system with respect to any one of the equivalent model while analyzing any one of the equivalent model. Because when you are going for an analysis, you have to take up an equivalent model, then you are going to analyze. We have a standard formulas to find out the deflection. You want to find out the deflection based on your end condition, where you want to find out the deflection at the span, whether you want to find out the deflection at the mid, or whether you want to find out the deflection at the 1/3 of the left hand or right hand, whatever it is, we have the relation and we'll be able to find out the formula. We'll be able to find out the deflection with respect to what? The load. And again, after if you find out the deflection, you know the cross section, you'll be able to find out the material property Young's modulus, you'll be able to find out the natural frequency of the system. So that is analytical, a natural frequency with considering some equivalent model. So considering some basic representation, you are going to find out your own system, your real-time system will be converted into any one equivalent model. And considering that equivalent model, you are trying to find out all these. And after finding out your deflection, after having your Young's modulus value, after knowing the cross section, your moment of inertia, everything, definitely you'll be able to find out what? Natural frequency. Once you find out the natural frequency, then you see the operating speed, then you try to compare both. Then the condition here, what is the speed at which you are not supposed to operate a system? That's why it is called a critical. You can go above or you can go below. The phenomena is called whirling, because if you look at through your naked eye, it form a loop. It is called a whirling. The phenomena is whirling. You can simply derive here and you can based on the derivation, you will be seeing at the resonance how the system behaves, because in the resonance the response of the system is infinite. That's why the amplitude of vibration is huge. The response of the system is infinite. Here the end condition. The condition means what? Whether what kind of a bearing you are using, what is your cross section of your shaft, and what is the diameter of your shaft, what is the material of the shaft. All these are important parameter. All these are boundary conditions that you are going to consider while start up the analysis. And we have to tell all these variables. Because of this only, the speed is going to affect. The critical speed means, sometimes we ask students, they may not be able to tell what is critical speed. Critical speed is nothing but simply a natural frequency. That is what we are finding out. We are finding out natural frequency, and we are trying to compare with operating speed, and we are trying to operate. Clear? Here the condition maybe a shaft. Here one question. Suppose your system is completely perfectly theoretically balanced. Shall we operate in a critical speed? Yes, definitely. You can operate your system in a critical speed, but the possibility is, well, it is almost zero. That's why we are not trying to attempt the same. Apart from that, your shaft may have a small bend or anything, that even before that critical speed, your system may experience some unwanted amplitude of vibration or may fail because of the bend shaft. And the here maybe here the case is only critical speed. When when we are talking about a pump and motor system, alignment also will come into a picture. Alignment is also a misalignment is very, very important point that we have to consider in fault diagnosis or condition monitoring. A misalignment. Clear? Here maybe as we discussed here, based on this, your shaft weight and your CG, where it is going to act. Your CG is acting between outside, maybe outside the axis, or maybe inside the axis. It depends whether if you are operating the response, maybe without. If you look at this particular shaft with gravity only, with negligible mass, the relation will be this one. If you look at this relation, if you look at this, when omega by omega n is less, the deflection y and e have the same sign. That is, the center of gravity lies outside the geometric centroid, of the shaft. The g value which is acting outside. When it is higher, the operating speed is higher, it is acting inside. When it is even more higher, that will try to have the coincidence with the static deflection. That is why for higher the speed, you will experience the lesser the vibration. The vibration, even very smooth running operating, you may experience for higher the speed. When it is omega by omega n is equal to 1, what happens when, if you look at this, the relation, the response of the system will be infinite when you substitute omega is equal to omega n, both are same. The system, the deflection y will be infinite. Because of that only, the system will experience the unwanted, the huge vibration, the unwanted huge response. So the critical speed analysis, this also one important factor for any vibration. So as we discussed, a different boundary condition, a cantilever rotating mass with the end, a central rotating mass with a long bearing. How do you define a long bearing and short bearing? What is the difference? Can anyone tell? Can anyone unmute and tell what is the difference? How do you define a long bearing and short bearing?
So based on the LBD ratio.
Yes, when the LBD ratio is greater than 1, it is long bearing, and when it is less than 1, it is short bearing. Very good. Then some different end conditions. We have the response, we have the critical speed. How to find out the critical speed is given. Again, it is a function of this. So when even when we are talking about some active vibration methods, suppose when we are talking about some natural frequency, suppose you want to alter the frequency, definitely that we have to look upon the Young's modulus and the cross section and stiffness and mass. So that is the parameter of the equation. Then these are all the different conditions. with different end supports with the different loading conditions. We have the relation. When it becomes multiple degrees of freedom, then the relation is here. A Dunkerley method or Rayleigh method is specifically used for transverse vibration. But here both are an approximation methods. Will give will give slightly the lower the natural frequency, lesser the natural frequency. One will give the higher the natural frequency for combined loading is given. So various boundary conditions is given. And the other method is we talked about damper and critical speed and now transmissibility, vibration isolation. My question is where we have to go for vibration isolation. The damper is suitable when the operating speed is omega by omega n is nearly around 0.8 to 1.2 or near operating in that particular region. It will be more effective. There is another one method is a dynamic vibration absorber that you can call it as a constant speed machine application, because there we are adding a secondary system to the primary system, and we are trying to observe the energy of the primary system through the secondary system. The secondary system will vibrate, the primary system vibration will come to zero. It is theoretically speaking, but practically it will not come to zero. And constant speed machine, we cannot claim that all the speed machines are constant speed, because even a slight voltage fluctuation may cause a slight deviation in the speed, that again leads to change in the performance of the dynamic vibration absorber or your secondary system. That leads to what? Maybe increase in amplitude of vibration. But it is theoretically speaking, it is mostly suited for constant speed machine. When your omega is equal to omega n and you are trying to design a secondary system, you are trying to match the frequency of your operating frequency is trying to matched with the natural frequency of the designed system, secondary system, then your primary system will come to rest. I'm not talking about isolation. Now I am talking about absorber. That slide, I missed the slide. So when omega by omega n is equal to 1 or constant speed, when you are designing your secondary system, when trying to match your operating frequency of your operating speed, then your primary system will be at rest. But there, when you are talking about DVA, it is completely theoretically speaking, it's suited for constant speed application. But in most of the practical application, speed is not constant. The speed may be variable due to many reasons. And we are trying to encounter such problem with the tuned dynamic vibration absorber. Tuned means we are trying to make change in frequency, or we are trying to make change in stiffness or mass. Even that is feasible, that is possible by making some material actively, that is possible. But there the problem is once you are attaching a system with the primary system, then the system will become 2 degrees of freedom. Then it will have two different natural frequencies. Then we have to see the operating speed are not trying to encounter the coincidence with any of the new natural frequencies. In order to avoid that, we have to select the mass of the secondary system carefully. That is mass ratio, that mu is equal to m2 by m1. Based on that, we have to go for the dynamic vibration absorber. Here vibration isolation is, it is partially, suppose a system is applying some force. The force is not supposed to transmit it to the nearby foundation or structure or neighboring bodies. Then we are trying to isolate with a rubber sheet or some cork, some felt like material. We are trying to isolate partially. So here it is transmissibility ratio is one important factor, Ft by F, force transmitted to force applied. Then the force transmitted should be lesser than force applied. Then the effectiveness of the isolator will come into picture. Here the graph shows for all the values, the frequency ratio versus transmissibility ratio. The graph shows for all the values of zeta, for when there is no operating speed is 0. It starts at 1. And again, for in another omega by omega n ratio, it all coincides again 1. That frequency normally is called as the root 2 frequency. Significance of root 2 frequency. We may ask, what is the significance of root 2 frequency? What is your understanding from this graph now? What is your understanding from this graph now? Here, the understanding is the isolation, the force transmitted, the y-axis, it is Ft by F. Here, the isolation really works. It crosses omega by omega n is more than root 2. Otherwise, it is higher. The other point is you may not simply go for an isolator. Isolator cannot be used as an alone, because mostly a damper is also inbuilt and damper is also supposed to use. Even when we drive a car, when you start an engine, you may experience a small jerk, but suddenly the engine RPM will go to 2000 or 3000. You can look at the speedometer, the engine RPM will go to 2000 or 3000 RPM. Similarly, when you switch off the engine, when you switch off the vehicle, switch off the engine, you may experience a small jerk. And again, the system will come to zero. The RPM, when you switch off, it will come to zero. Here, the particular jerk is because of the resonance. At one particular speed, the engine RPM is matches with the natural frequency. Because of that, you are experiencing a jerk. But we are not experiencing the jerk maximum because we are crossing the speed immediately. We are accelerating, we are crossing the speed immediately, so the jerk is very minimum. So sometimes we experience, sometimes we are not experiencing. So when you are experiencing that particular jerk, the damper suddenly will come into picture. The damper will act in that particular region, that omega is equal to omega n. When you cross, then the damper will not significant. Here, if you look at, the engine will be mounted with a chase, sometimes with a rubber sheet or an isolator. Even a machine tool also mounted with the foundation with the isolator. Some rubber sheets or some kind of sheets may be used. Even sometimes a concrete bed is also an isolator, will not transmit force to the foundation. A concrete bed, so it partially remove the force from the system to, from the rotating system or system to foundation. Clear? Here, normally you have to operate. Suppose you want to effectively use your isolator, you have to see, you have to ensure that your system should be operated that omega by omega n is more than root 2. More than root 2. Then what you have to do? Then only your isolator will come into picture. Then it isolates some of the force transmitted to the neighboring system or foundation. Here, the one point that you have to consider, when omega by omega n is greater than root 2 means, what you have to do, your omega n value, that natural frequency of your system, that engine, omega is operating speed of the engine, the natural frequency of your system should be what? Should be more than the operating speed. Omega n should be what? Oh, omega n should be what? More or less? Omega n should be less. The natural frequency should be less, not more. Sorry, less. That omega n, the denominator should be less. Then only you can go more than 1.4, 1.414. That is root 2. Value of root 2, 1.414. You can go more than that. So omega n, the denominator omega n is the natural frequency of the system. The natural frequency, if the natural frequency is more, then it will be other side. Omega n is lesser than 1. Then the isolator will not come into picture. Then that is the reason what people will do. Normally, the complete system will be accompanied with a rubber sheet or any other isolator means that will be a weak spring. How you can bring natural frequency of the system is lesser means mass should be higher when compared to stiffness. Then the weak spring concept will come into picture. Weak spring, a rubber is a weak spring. So a car felt is a weak spring. Then we are going for such type of a material. Then that particular isolator will be combined with the main system. Then the natural frequency of the main system will be coming down. Then what? The isolator will come into picture. Then it reduces the vibration. Then if you look at more than the 1.141 region, the isolation will start. The Ft, the force transmitted, is less when compared to force applied the denominator. Then it is lesser value, less than 1. Then only the isolator will function. will effectively work. So now we know, though we are analyzing, the moment we start taking up a system, we are going for analysis. The first and foremost thing will come to our mind is reduce the amplitude of vibration. How to reduce the amplitude of vibration? By means of going for some controlling mechanism. So what controlling mechanism I have to choose for what kind of application? It depends on the operating speed and the natural frequency. So the moment I take the model frequencies, the moment I take the operating range, the moment I see the system, the moment I am looking upon the controlling mechanism to bring down the vibration, whether I have to go for a damper, whether even I am going for a damper, whether the damper is a significant, and whether I have to go for simply spring altering the stiffness, or whether I have to go for changing the mass, whether I am going for a dynamic vibration absorber that is more suited for a constant speed machine. Even um, here, dynamic vibration absorber, it is a tuned dynamic vibration absorber is available, actively tuned. Even we have done some experimentation, actively tuned dynamic vibration absorber using some shape memory alloys. It is a smart material. So the material will try to what? The mechanism behind the operating is when you apply load, when you applied a load, a kind of a load, a temperature or a current, what kind of a load you apply to the system or by means of using the material, and the material will undergo a phase transformation. Because of that, the Young's modulus will have changes in Young's modulus. Because of that, it will change the stiffness. Because of the changes in stiffness, that will change the natural frequency. Then it will try to change. Even we have attempted one project recently completed to Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. If you look at the energy, solar energy is popular, the wind energy is not that much popular. Wind energy is popular, only it is popular for very high capacity wind turbines. But low capacity wind turbines, if you look at China, countries like China, the low capacity wind turbines or horizontal axis wind turbines are widely used for household applications or buildings. They are trying to use as a renewable source of energy. But in India, that is not that much successful because of vibration that harms that even when the blade is rotating at the 20 or 30 rpm, it undergoes some failure. Then it harm that. Then the blade may what? Uh, the blade may what? Maybe people are living nearby. The blade may injure someone. So maybe other reason. We have to erect. We have to erect the machine, complete machine on the roof of the building. Then definitely that also vibration is continuously there. A solar means the vibration may not be there, but a wind turbine means when it is rotating, the vibration is transmitted to the building. That may harm to the building. Because of these reasons, wind turbine, horizontal axis wind turbine is not that much commercially successful. But that particular project is attempted to control the vibration actively because for varying wind conditions, the blade has to change its stiffness automatically. Then the blade has to change the stiffness automatically. Then we are trying to reduce the vibration of the wind turbine. The project was sanctioned in the year 2016 and it was completed in the year 2019. But by employing a shape memory alloy, so we have manufactured a different set of blades with a different volume of a shape memory alloy, incorporated with the without compromising the profile of the blade. We did that manufacturing. The manufacturing facility, with the help of a Suzlon, we have manufactured that blade. Then we have analyzed the blade in static and dynamic conditions. A different reading was taken, a different set of readings, experimentations, and equivalent model was generated, and analytical model was developed and was tested with and experimentally it is verified. And we have attained some reasonable reduction in vibration, even when there is a changes in wind condition. So that is one example of rotating system. So here, automatic monitoring concept. Now, if you look at maybe we have the facility for all. We have a DST sponsored vibration, a noise and vibration laboratory in PSG College of Technology. We have the facilities there. We have some reasonably good facilities for vibration analysis. So any system you are taking that transducer, we have single axis, multiple axis transducers available with us. and we have PXA modules, data collector, we have a shaker, model shaker, we have everything. We have all the systems with us. Then we have FFT. Then when you take the time domain graph into frequency domain by using a fast Fourier transformation, we'll be able to convert the frequency domain. Some example, a simple example I'll give you. I'll tell you here. A simple rotation is converted into a time domain, a time waveform graph. So here one complete cycle is 360 degrees. Suppose one complete cycle is 360 degrees. One revolution it is given here. Simple conversion of simple harmonic motion representation. Here, if you look at a sample example, even if you take a pump vibration, it is an impeller rotating inside the pump. Impeller may have 4 vents or 5 vents or 6 vents, whatever it is. It number of the vents, tiny packets of the waters are forced into the pipe. That effect is called a water hammering effect or hydraulic pulsation. That is one important factor while analyzing the pump vibration. If you are talking about a fault diagnosis of a pump or condition monitoring of a pump or vibration analysis of a pump, even we might have experienced when we are pumping the water from our ground to over tank of our house. Sometimes the pipelines are vibrating. Because of it, the water hammering effect, hydraulic pulsation. Because the impeller, if you have 4 impeller, in between all the 4 impellers, the tiny packets of the waters are stored, and that will push the water into what pipe, because actually here the flow is discontinuous. But when you open the pipe, we are getting a continuous flow, because per minute it rotates 1,000 times. So 1,000 tiny packets of waters are forced into the pipeline. That effect is water hammering effect or hydraulic pulsation. That effect we have to analyze. That will create some vibration, some unwanted vibration, even in the pipeline or maybe in the pump, that we are trying to avoid. Here, if you look at 4 blade is there, vibration occurs 4 times per revolution. So 4 into 1,000, 4,000 cycles per minute. Whereas the previous is what? A single, one revolution, a single. Here 4 times happens in a single revolution. 4 cycles, 4,000 cycles per minute. Here the range is higher. The frequency range is slightly higher. Even if you look at other rotating system, it is a gear mesh frequency. A gear is having 12 teeth, or if more than that, if it operates 1,000 RPM, then the RPM is at then the vibration occurs at 12,000 cycles per minute. Clear? 12,000 cycles per minute. That means here, when you convert this into hertz, it is 200 hertz. It is 200 hertz. Now, different examples. You have RPM, you have the response. The first one is one response, second one is one response, and third one is one response. A system will have a number of components. A gearbox will have a number of components. A pump is having number of components. So each component will contribute a vibration. So each vibration will be of a different cycles per second. So it depends on that. We have a combined effect. Suppose when you are talking about a time domain, so each will be at a separate. When you are taking into frequency domain, then it will be superimposed. It is a combined effect. Then we have to see there is a peak here and there. Then we have to analyze the peak is because of what. Suppose if you are getting the peak based on this graph, if you are getting a peak at 4,000 cycles per second, the peak is maybe due to the impeller. Or if you are getting a peak in the frequency response system at 12,000 cycles per second, then the peak is because of what? The gear mesh frequency. Likewise, we have to analyze. So before starting analyzing, then we have to take we have to diagnose what is the reason. So a graph is given here in front of you for each case given. Then a complex graph is given here. Complex graph is given in a time domain. So it is a superimposing one on other. One complete revolution, one complete revolution whereas the impeller system will have 4 times it experience 4 cycles per second. The other one is 12 cycles per second. So it is a mixed together. But having the time domain analysis, we may not be able to infer any fruitful results. So because of that, we have to go for definitely a frequency domain analysis. So for that, even we have to convert a time domain analysis into frequency domain analysis by using a FFT analyzer. Fast Fourier transformation we may use to convert this into that one. Here acceleration, it is given with respect of acceleration, or you can give with respect of displacement, or with respect of velocity, whatever it is. The measurement may be with respect to any quantity. With respect to any quantity. Now in a frequent. Hello sir, யாரோட மைக்கும் ஆனா இருக்கு? Hello.
பாக்குறேன் சார், செக் பண்றேன்.
Sir, please. Okay. Now FFT. Now if you look at the amplitude versus time, when you superimpose all these three, the peak cut, maybe the peak cut because of the bearing, or because of impeller, or because of a bend shaft, or because of a gear mesh frequency, whatever may be the reason, there may be a peak at a different level. Here the conversion is simply given in front of you. So one is red color, one is the green color, one is the blue color. It because of the different reason. The impeller may be the reason, or gear mesh frequency, or maybe the bearing may be the reason. Whatever the corresponding the frequency domain graph is given, the peak also given. Here the one important point we have to consider, that Nyquist frequency criterion. That means the sampling frequency range. Suppose the sampling frequency range should be more than 2 times of what is your highest frequency that you are going to operate, or you are going to experience in your system. You are going to operate. Suppose I am going to operate some 20,000 or some 10,000 hertz. Definitely that my frequency range I have to take for analysis is more than 20,000 hertz, 20,000 or 25,000 hertz, to see maybe the reasons the reasons contributed by various components in the system. Mostly it is all related with operating speed. That is called actually characteristic frequency. That is 1x, one time of its operating frequency. Maybe you have a bend shaft, your system will experience vibration at 1x. The reason is, if you have there is a small bend in a shaft or unbalance in a shaft, you have a peak at 1x, one time of it operating frequency, then the reason may be your shaft. Suppose 2x may be bearing, then 2 times of your operating speed you are experiencing some peak, then that is because of your bearing. 3x, 3 times of your operating speed, maybe you are experiencing a peak, that is because of the hydraulic pulsation, or water hammering effect, or cavitation. Suppose I am talking about a pump, a cavitation. Suppose I am talking about a gear, it is a gear mesh frequency, gearbox, gear mesh frequency. It depends on the system which I am going to take it for analysis. So these 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x, 10x, these frequencies are called characteristic frequencies. Already some general guidelines are there for all rotating system. So some benchmark vibration levels are available, and even literature you can find out some maybe velocity meters per second, or some meter square per second. Some values are in millimeters, some values are available with the literature, or even the manufacturers will have the data, and we are trying to compare with that one, with the different conditions of the system, with the different, maybe even we have attempted to find out even PSG is manufacturing a pumps, and we have attempted to make the analysis with different pumps, a new pump and pump with 2 or 3 year old, or with a bend shaft, or with a bearing problem, or with some other problem. Even if you take a bearing problem, again the bearing analysis is again a big domain. The vibration is due to what? A condition monitoring of a bearing, because a bearing is defined with maybe the performance, a dynamic load capacity of the bearing, some defined number of million revolutions the bearing has to take the load without any failure. But that may not happen. Sometimes it may work, or sometimes it may not work due to some reason. Even the bearing is itself, the ball pass frequency is there, the ball pass frequency, outside ball pass frequency, inner ball pass frequency, and the fundamental train frequency or gauge failing frequency, like different frequencies are there. Even when you are talking about a bearing alone, I am giving the introduction and overview. So how to attempt when you are talking about a system, so how to start and how to attempt to solve the problem. So here at a different, as I told, at a different x, the first one is at one time of its operating speed, the second one is at 4 time of its operating speed, and the third one is at a 12 time of its operating speed. So here some predefined spectrum analysis band is given. 1 RPM is maybe due to unbalance, the second time of characteristic speed is due to alignment, the third to 5 times maybe the looseness, and 5 to 25 RPM anti-friction bearings, and 25 to 65 maybe both may have happen, gear mesh frequency and bearing. Simply if you have a peak, we may not be able to say it is only because of the coincidence of frequency to operating speed. For that, we have to analyze the phase angle also. When the phase angle is 90 degree and it shifts from 0 to 180 degree, then only it is perfectly a natural frequency. Otherwise, it may not be a natural frequency. It need not be a natural frequency. And even when you take a signal, maybe some noise, the effect of noise also, the surroundings also will contribute to the amplitude of vibration. That alone, that all we have to filter it. We have to filter it. We have to filter it. All this. And as I told, outer race, the frequencies, outer race. One is the ball pass frequency, outer race, ball pass frequency, inner race, and ball spin frequency, and the cage failing frequency, or it can be called as a fundamental train frequency. Normally, a ball pass frequency can be defined as you can take it as at which a defect in the inner or outer race comes into contact with the roller. The rate at which the defect in inner race or outer race will come into contact with the roller is called a ball pass frequency. It may be with respect to inner or outer. The fundamental train frequency, it corresponds physically to the number of times that makes the bearing cage each time the shaft makes a complete run. For one complete run, the bearing cage each time that makes in contact with the physically, that is called FTF, that is fundamental train frequency or cage failing frequency. So it is an example, some defect is given. So
Sir, no audio, sir. Hello, sir, your voice is not audible.
more than that, single place in Pune, from Pune, they'll be able to control, they'll be able to see the status of the system. They can able to monitor the status of the system with the remote sensing method. Nowadays, people are maybe IoT enabled are also there. People are working on it. So if you take a pump vibration, specifically the pump vibration belongs to cavitation. The explanation you also know, because shortage of time, I'm just telling only the problems. cavitation, bend shaft, pump flow pulsation is what I told, hydraulic pulsation. That is called with respect to the number of that is called with respect to the number of impeller and its operating speed. We'll be able to find out that. And impeller unbalance in impeller in unbalance in pump shaft, unbalance in impeller. Then bearing issues, as we discussed, bearing issues again will contribute the 4 or 5. And misalignment is what there is an experiment also we may taught to our students, misalignment with the misalignment kit. So with that particular misalignment, some misalignment is available, with that alignment, with that permitted alignment, how can run the system to the speed of this much and to the lifetime of this much, we'll be able to predict. But we are trying to have the misalignment. If you have a misalignment between the motor shaft and pump shaft, then again that leads to a lot of a complication. So here it is the different frequencies contributed for the rotating system at different peaks due to various reasons. So we have to analyze the reason. If you take up one frequency domain, one particular peak at one characteristic RPM, then it may be due to what is the reason. And if you once you know that, and we are trying to counteract that particular problem with any method of controlling, we are trying to avoid. We are trying to react on that. So this is about from basics, starting from natural frequency and how to go for. It depends on what and where to go for what kind of a controlling mechanism in case of vibration analysis. And if you take a time domain and how to convert it into a frequency domain, and what is characteristic frequency, and then that is that I have touched upon the basics and one or two case studies. The detailed analysis maybe even you can done, and we did on many places. Many even we used to do consultancy for nearby companies in Coimbatore, and even during this pandemic also we visited once LMW for some vibration at a floor, a textile machinery unit. Vibration is at, in the floor nearby the one particular machine near to the floor. It is huge vibration you can experience, and we try to find out the operational model analysis, and we are measuring the vibrations, and we try to give some suggestion, and some noise related consulting also we do from the facilities available at PSG College of Technology. I also welcome you if you have any. Myself is in charge for the vibration center. So if you have anything you want to do, analysis you want to do, you can make use of the facility. Thank you. I welcome any questions. So now it is time exactly 11. So I stop with this. I request anyone. I request if you have any queries, I'll answer, or I'll also share my mail ID. If you have any queries, or if you have anything you want, or share mail ID means even if you go to college website, Yuvaraja, if you search Dr. Yuvaraja, you'll get all the details. You'll have my mail ID, and you can mail me anything you want to use the facility, or any clarifications you want. You can mail me, or you can ask me. Thank you all.
Participants, you want to ask any question, please raise the question.
Sir, how to find out operation deflection shape?
Operational model analysis you are talking about.
Yes, sir. We in that only we have to find out the operation deflection shape of shafts and how to determine that, sir.
Yes, for that we have to do operational model analysis. When the system is running, when the you can have softwares are available. ME scope, like you have tools are available, especially for vibration. With that software, with giving the boundary conditions, you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to retract the operational mode shapes, and even experimentation doing in operating conditions. It is very difficult to take. Maybe in all the places it is difficult to extract the mode shapes. Wherever it is feasible, we can take that one. But you have tools are available to take that one. Operational model analysis. You can perform with ME scope or some other tools.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other question, please? So no question means we will end the session.
Ah.
Yuvaraja
Okay,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir.
Sir, really we thank you very much for giving a very basic fundamental knowledge on the vibration, from starting from the natural frequency, then the damping, magnification factor, unbalance, transmissibility, then critical speed and its analysis, and the different characteristics of frequency and the pump vibration and its measuring parameters. Really, sir, it is a very useful session for the participants, I hope. So, thank you very much for spending your valuable time to us for this faculty development program, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. I thank you, Kongu Engineering College and Dr. V. Hariharan, sir, for giving me this opportunity to deliver note on this particular AICTE sponsored ATAL program FDP. Thank you, sir. Thank you all. Thank you all participants for your patience listening. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Participants, the next session will start exactly by 11:30. You be log in by 11:25. Thank you.